Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're here to talk about the Calgary Flames and their season that just was and the season that's coming in 2023 2024. So we'll start off with the season that just was. And from a Calgary perspective, it was definitely a disappointing one. They just, after finishing first in the Pacific the season before, didn't end as they would like with the second round exit to Edmonton, but still, first in the Pacific, they played pretty well. However, they did have two big losses in the off season in Matthew Tkachuk and Johnny Gaudreau. However, they got a pretty good return for Tkachuk in Huberdeau and Weegar, and they went from a lot of people believing they were going to have a struggle year and they were going to have a really down year, to all of a sudden being back in playoff contention and being considered as contenders, especially with the likes of Huberdeau, who had just put up a 100+ point season, and Weegar coming back, which was meant to strengthen their blue line. However, it didn't really turn out that well for them. Huberdeau had a really down year, along with some other players on their side as well, including another pickup in that off season in Nazem Kadri. So overall, it just basically their entire side had a down year. When you go through all of their stats, you just start to see, I think their whole blue line went from negative, went from positive 30+ minuses to just scraping in the plus minus. The impressive thing about it actually was that even though they didn't make the playoffs and all the rest of that, their blue line still finished with majority positive plus minuses. I think there was, I can't remember who it was, but one of their depth defenders who played 28 games, he still had a zero, an even plus minus. So
Gilbert,
that was pretty impressive. Gilbert, yeah, that's one. That was pretty impressive, I thought, considering they didn't make playoffs. So how do you have an entire blue line with a positive plus minus and not make playoffs? It might have something to do with the fact that they lost 17 games in overtime. So you think back to it. They finished the season 16th overall, which is cruel in a sense, because you'd think if you finish 16th with 16 playoffs teams, you'd be in the playoffs. However, that's just how the standings work. Calgary finished with 38 wins, 93 points on the season, and were 2 points back of the Winnipeg Jets for that final Western wildcard spot. But yeah, you've got to look at the overtime losses, really. 17. At the end of the day, they win 3 of those and they're in the playoffs. It's simple as that. You look at the Winnipeg Jets who beat them out for a playoff. They only lost 3 in overtime. And they had 46 wins. So it's just, at the end of the day, that's sort of what let this team down. They just couldn't get the job done. They lost 17 overtime. That means they lost 17 games by a goal. That's minimum. They lost 17 games minimum by a goal. And ultimately that hurt you. So disappointing year. But you can look at it and go, there's not too much they have to really change, you wouldn't think. This next season is going to be interesting. So in saying that, I think I'll finish the recap off there and I'll hand you off to Jaden to take you through the 2023-24 lineup.
Sweet. So we're starting off salary cap just slightly over $200,000 over at the moment. So still going to make moves, though. I know Shillington is on the injured reserve, just not on the LTIR. Don't know when he comes back, but yeah, they probably still have to make another move. Starting out, first line, you got Huberdeau, Lindholm, and Sharangovich. Cap Friendly has there. Obviously, the addition on the offseason from New Jersey. If he does play first line, that's great, because I feel like a Huberdeau setup will give him an extra 10+ goals, because that guy does have a good shot. I call him Govich. So I feel like that is a good addition there. You got Mangiapane, Backlund, and Coleman on the second. Dubé, Kadri, and Coronado on the third. Pelletier, Ruzicka, and then Dua on the fourth. Defenders, Hanifin, Anderson, Tanev, Weegar, Owaserli, and Zadorov. And then you've got, in regards to just the scratches for their depth, Shillington and Gilbert as well. In regards to their goaltenders, Markstrom and Vladar, they both had down years. I think their statistics were pretty identical. I think it was actually pretty much the same. So both down years, lower than the averages by a long shot. So we'll see if they bounce back. Notable losses: they lose Lewis to LA, Lucic goes back to Boston, Phillips to Washington, Setcher to Arizona, Stone retires, and Toffoli, obviously a part of that Sharangovich trade between New Jersey. So not many additions here, just Owaserli through the free agency. They have made some two-way contract additions for their, the minors, and then obviously the Toffoli trade, trading out their highest goal scorer from last year with like 34 goals. They get, Golvich, player with a great shot. So I can see that as like a fair trade in a sense, because I can see Shara's got a lot of big upside there. Where do you start with this team? Well, so far, like, they haven't had many draft picks over the last 2 years, especially last year. They pretty much had only 3, and one really only notable in the second round, and that was Ronnie. So not much depth coming through from there. That is the question mark, is how much depth is coming through for them. And I would say they haven't made much changes. You could argue they probably didn't have to. I could probably only say that maybe their bottom 6 or bottom 4th line, you can make some adjustments, because I like their defense, and it's honestly a gamble with Markstrom and Vladar if they bounce back. Markstrom is good, that's why he's got the $6 million contract, but we'll have to see if he does bounce back. And you do have Hunt and Rooney on that depth for the forward line there. Rooney, obviously, that muscle. He'll give you a good fight on that 4th line. And I guess before I hand it over, the one last thing I'll say, there's a lot of UFAs here. So 6 out of the 8 of their defenders are UFAs this year. So they'll have to do some signings, and that could increase the cap depending on how these players play. So they do have to take that into consideration. They also have Lindholm coming up with a big paycheck coming. Backlund could get a big paycheck. So they're in some cap trouble here, unfortunately, from what I see.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Backlund situation will be interesting given that he is 34. That might be the saving grace there. But again, he put up 19 goals and 56 points plus 24 last season in ultimately what was a down season. He seemed to have quite an impressive year. So yeah, I mean, look, he's going to be 35 when the next contract sort of comes up. So you'd hope there's the potential there to get a bit of a discount. But again, if he puts up another season like he did last season, those players are going for, a 50, 60 point player. They're sort of going for that 6-7 mil sort of thing. So 35 years of age, you would hope that they could get a discount on that. But the Elias Lindholm situation is going to be interesting, because you're not getting a discount on a 28, 29-year-old who, although he had a down year last year, in sense, his goal production was down and all the rest of it. He's been pretty strong throughout, and he still put up 64 points last year in a down season. So, yeah, you're going to think that Elias Lindholm is looking around the 8-9 mil mark, really.
Well, he's in a contract year, and he's had this pattern where he's been down, up in the last 4 years, and this is his up year. So you got his up year coming, plus his contract year added onto that. So I think he could easily score over 30 goals this year, and especially with I feel like a season under the belt with Huberdeau, I feel like that chemistry can, spark up, and I feel like Shara is that perfect two-way forward. Not much, everyone talks about his shot, but he has an amazing two-way game. It's why he plays PK. So I feel like that will help Lindholm and Huberdeau be a little bit more loose in scoring. So
Mm.
if he does play on that first line, so
And that's and
yeah,
that's that's the interesting thing about the Sharangovich pickup, right? Is he scored 24 goals the year before last, and he was only playing on the second, third line. And last season, he only scored 13 goals, albeit, but he was playing fourth line minutes. He was playing with he didn't play with
he was
Hisha, he
slightly
didn't play
cast
with Hughes.
aside by New Jersey, wasn't he? So he wasn't getting
Yeah, he
power
was.
play, and yeah.
No, he was made to be a penalty killer,
Mm.
and which he's good at. So you want him to do that, but he was playing. Yeah, he was basically playing away from any real talent. He was playing on the fourth line, which was realistically a third or fourth line, which was more of a shutdown line. He wasn't really given the players around him to shine. So if he is projected on that first line and he does play with the likes of Lindholm and Huberdeau, I can see this guy putting up minimum 20 goals and potentially even getting up to that 30 because he has a deadly shot. And, we're saying just before we started recording this, like, you look at their team and what they produced the year before or the season before the one that's just gone, they had such down years that you could literally drag out 10 to 15 goals from several of these players if you just go back a season prior. Yep, the season prior they were first in the Pacific and they had Matthew Tkachuk and Gaudreau there as well. But Huberdeau and Nazem Kadri they're no scruffs. Like they're pretty good players. Like they both have put up big points in the past. Huberdeau 100 plus points, Kadri 80 odd points when Colorado won the cup. So these are two pretty big players. Like they can fill the void of a Kachuk and a Gaudreau. So I'm very interested to see how these guys bounce back because they're still in the Pacific, which isn't necessarily the strongest, albeit Vegas won the cup and Seattle look all right. Los Angeles are there, and Edmonton's quite strong. But I can still see them competing with the Vegas Oilers kicking out an LA or a Seattle Kraken. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting with these guys because all it takes is that little bit of chemistry with Huberdeau and Kadri in their second season, Weegar on the blue line, an improved season from Markstrom, and yeah, these guys could be back to number one in the Pacific.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like on paper, this team does not look bad. So
No.
it it does bring the question what went wrong last season, and like just to go through some stats. Like you mentioned that their top four D, basically all their D were in the positive, but their top four D were
Mm-hmm.
basically like plus 30 or more, um, maybe just slightly less. And then they dropped dramatically. Like plus 15 was the highest. Some of them were just barely scraping above, 0, plus 2, plus 5. So that's a concern. You're losing like 25 or so goals in positive right there. A couple 5-on-5 stats. This is where I think they probably went wrong. They were 29th in the league for save percentage on unblocked shots, and that goes to Markstrom and Vladar in regards to how they were playing. With that said, they were second for medium and low danger shots, only behind Carolina. So medium and low danger shots they were reducing, which means I think they were like 18th or something in regards to high danger. So
Mm-hmm.
doing really good with the medium and low, but just letting too many high danger chances. And I think that relates to too many giveaways. They were 29th in the league for giveaways to the opponent and 27th in the defensive zone. So majority of those giveaways were in the defensive zone, and that's not a recipe for success, especially for a team with this D core that they have. And I feel like that's where an addition of like Sharangovich is a good addition because he has that two-way game, so it helps that D core get it out the D zone.
Mm.
And then just the last thing there was on the defense in the defensive zone, they were number 29 in the league for shots blocked. So they weren't putting their body on the line. So this was all 5-on-5 stats. But honestly, that's where generally you win the game, unless you have like a Edmonton Oilers power play. That's basically where you're gonna win it, because they didn't have a bad penalty kill. It was one one of the best, wasn't it? It was like fourth best,
Well,
equal.
it was equal fourth best in the league,
Mm,
yeah. And
but
that's the thing. You look at a lot of these stats, and second best in the league for shots, third best in the league for shots against. But again, you look at that and go third best in the league for shots against. However, your point just before with 5-on-5 and the medium and low danger shots, so they were doing really well with those. But the high danger shots they were letting in quite
yeah, it was
significantly. So
below
yeah,
average.
okay, exactly right. So all of a sudden it's like, yeah, you're not conceding that many shots, but when you are, you're conceding high danger shots. So yeah, like sometimes this is where stats can be a bit skewed. Like this looks great, second best for shots, but clearly those shots aren't damaging. They're similar to a
I was
Carolina
gonna
in the
say
sense where
Carolina-esque. Yeah.
yeah, putting up, a good 36, 37 shots a game, but you're just basically shooting from low
Mm.
danger slots and hoping for the best. But
And
yeah, it's
they do need to improve on that power play though. It was number 19, so it was just average. And I feel like with the top six that this team has, it should not be average. It should be probably top 10. Just because of
yeah,
the quality that is on that front line, and they don't have defenders that will leak. So I feel like just a little bit more shoring up on the power play there. I just think it's probably just another year. I think this team's fine and it's going to bounce back this year. They're probably going to finish third or higher in the division, I'd say, is my prediction. And I feel like their decor bounces back. I feel like you probably get an extra 10 goals from at least from Huberdeau, uh, Lindholm, and then possibly another 10 if Sharangovich does play on the first line from them. So that's 30 goals right there. And I feel like their depth is really good. I would just like to see probably maybe another addition on the fourth line for their wing. I feel like they could probably shore up there. I feel like that's probably their weakest spot besides their goaltending, but I feel like that could bounce back quite easily. Um, I know they leaked more goals as expected on 5-on-5 than what they should have, but it was only by a little bit. So I feel like it really just comes down to those high danger chances and those giveaways that they were doing. And I feel like a year with this chemistry with Weegar and Huberdeau, I feel like they're going to do it. Lindholm in his contract
mm,
year. So yeah, I predict they go into the playoffs, and I feel like they're going to be not what they were last year, and they're going to look strong. And I feel like people will probably sleep on them because of recency bias and what they did last year.
yeah. And I think the Sharangovich pickup is going to be a little bit underrated in the sense that yeah, they lost Tyler Toffoli and you lose
Yeah,
30 goals there.
it's a
But
big loss, but yeah.
he it is a big loss, and that is the question. But he's a UFA. He's a bit older than Sharangovich. They've only signed Sharangovich to 2 years, but you've obviously still got the opportunity to sign him longer. Um, I feel like this is a guy who can shoot from anywhere. Like he can be in the weird. Like you watch him play, he can be in the weirdest position. Basically, you think he's got no room. He can't get a shot off from here, and he will get a shot off, and it'll be on target. And that is how he scores so many of his goals, where it just looks like it's a nothing play, and then he somehow gets a shot off, and it's in the back of the net. This right there, if you're talking about them, their quality of shot, which they clearly didn't have last year, 19th in the power play, but sixth. They were sixth for shots on goal on the power play. So that there just shows that their shots to the net aren't high danger. They're not quality. Whereas I think Sharangovich will bring that quality if they can utilize him properly and get the puck to him and get him shooting at the net. That is going to be a player who can put up your 30 goals. So you think Tyler Toffoli put up 30 goals last year? Well, I do think this is a guy who can do the same. So I feel like you're not really going to lose anything there. A lot of people might disagree. I just think you need to see a pickup from Lindholm and Huberdeau and Kadri alike. And I think you're going to get that because I think Huberdeau and Kadri now, with a year under their season under their belts, you're not going to see the down season that you saw prior. Like, I think Huberdeau had 60 points on the year or something. Like, it wasn't.
Yeah, like
It
60 out of
wasn't
80
good.
games or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, 55. So even less. Like, this is a guy who put up 115 points the season prior. And then you even go to the season before that, he only put up 61 points. That was in 55 games. He was still a point a game player. He's been a point a game player for the 4 seasons prior to this. And even the season before that, he put up 69 points and 27 goals. So this is a player who he's gonna get you anywhere from 20 to probably 25, 30 goals and a good 80, 90 points. He might not do that 115 points like he did in his last year with Florida, but he is still going to put up 25 to 30 goals and get you 80 points. I feel like last season was a real just feel out season. A lot of people were saying, nah, this is going to be his trajectory. But you don't put up a point a game for 4 straight seasons and then just forget how to play hockey. This guy knows how to play hockey. He's a quality player. And I think you're going to see a bounce back from him. And I believe that's the same with Kadri. And obviously, Elias Lindholm, now that him and Huberdeau have that chemistry, you'll naturally see Lindholm's point production increase as well. So, yeah, and that's really all it takes, right? You get a few extra goals from these guys. I don't think they're going to leak too many goals. I don't think they're going to get worse defensively. I think Markstrom should have a better year. And that's probably all they need to be back in the playoffs. It's just those extra goals that they weren't getting from Huberdeau and Lindholm and Kadri.
It's basically it. It's not too much for success, really, for this team. Like Huberdeau had a lot of years with Barkov, so you have that chemistry. Now we can build that with Lindholm. You still got Backlund, who I still think will be really good this year. You got a lot of players in contract years on the D, so they could probably prove themselves and then put you in cap problems next year. But if you're going for it, it's fine. I think Markstrom probably bounces back. You got Shillington, who hopefully comes back sometimes this year. I know he was out all last season, personal matters, but he looks like he could be back. Don't know if he will start the season, but that is a somewhat of a good depth piece there that was missing from last year as well. So they got that to add, which could probably replace Owas early, and then or Zadarov, depending on how people are playing. And then you got just someone we haven't really noted is Coronado on the third line there, just expected to play this year. He only played 1 game last year, was a +1, and he was their first round in 2021, I believe it was. So if he does make this step this year and does play something like a third line, this does look a lot better. If he doesn't make that step, I've got issues with their depth, and I feel like that's where they can make additions or moves. But yeah, it's just this cap situation. They're kind of stuck with this team at the moment, and I can't see how many big moves they're really going to make here. You know, they could do something crazy, especially on the D if they're expecting not to sign someone like a Tanev or something. But yeah, I I think this year will be a good year. I think they're going to see a lot of bounce back. I think you're going to see a lot of probably third or higher in their division. Probably only behind something like a Oilers and maybe a Vegas, and then probably fighting with LA for that third. So yeah, that's what I'm seeing here, and I'm actually pretty confident they're going to do good. It's just that that depth. That's my only question, and if Markstrom bounces back or not. But having Vladar have the exact same stats as Markstrom last year kind of gives me hope that at least one of them can step up this year. If
Yeah.
one does
Well,
crash.
Well, I mean, you look at Markstrom. You only have to go back over his, previous seasons. Even with the Calgary Flames, like the season before, he was, like 2.22 goals against, 0.92 save percentage. But like that was phenomenal. He had a really good, really solid season. But even the seasons prior, like that season he just had was his worst season as a starter in his career. And
Yeah.
even a couple of years before he became a true starter and was playing more than half the games with Vancouver, he still was putting up a 915, 910 save percentage in those 2 seasons prior to that. So this is as bad as it's gotten for him in 8 years, 8 seasons, and he has not had a season under 900 in those 7 seasons prior to the season just gone. This 8th season was a shocker for him. So I don't think it's going to take much for him to be able to bounce back. A bit more solid in front and maybe a bit more
less giveaways.
offensive, less giveaways. Yeah, a bit more offensive prowess. So being a bit more potent with their shots and actually putting some goal pressure on the opposition. I think that is just going to turn into. It's just going to give Markstrom confidence, right? So if this offense can put goals on the board and that defense can ultimately be a little bit stronger than they were last year in front of him, get back to that 2021-22 season, there's no reason why Markstrom won't put up a 915 save percentage again.
Yeah.
And
well, they lost one of their worst
yeah.
plus minuses in Lucic to Boston, so that loss is probably a gain in some senses. And then you've got Kadri was their worst plus minus. I do think he played with Lucic just a little bit, so it does hurt just a little bit. But if Kadri can bounce back in regards to that plus minus sector, then this team's solid. And I think losing Lucic is a positive, not a negative for this team. Personally, that's just my opinion on him. But yeah.
He's aged poorly. I think he's not really, other than being a bit of a muscle on the ice. He's not really providing too much more these days. So yeah, you're probably not wrong. I guess the biggest, I mean, I could say depth, is probably their only issue, but also Ruzicka. I don't know if I'm saying that. Ruzicka on the fourth. Like he had a pretty good season last year. I think he put up 20 odd points in only the 40 odd games. So they've got some players who can play on that bottom six for sure. But yeah, I guess it's going to be can they step up and take that full time role? That Coronado does he have what it takes to make it? They do have Kevin Rooney sitting back there, who has been a good sort of fourth line player over his career. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see sort of what comes of this team this year, because this season, because there is no reason why they can't bounce back and be right back in the playoffs.
Alrighty. If you're done there, I couldn't know more to add on for this team. I just think they're going to bounce back from last year. I think just sure up on those giveaways, and Markstrom and Vladar won't be so much under pressure with those high danger shots, and that's pretty much it because everything else seems solid. So yeah. Yeah, if that's it, feel free to like the video, comment below what you think of the Calgary Flames, and if they do bounce back for this season upcoming, as they haven't made many changes for it. And just feel free to subscribe to the channel, leave all notifications on, and until next video, we'll catch you later, guys.
See you later, guys.